All right, like I said, let's do this. Hi, my name is Richard L'Esperance. I go by the name of Richard, or my man Richard, and welcome to a better lifestyle. So today I have Richard Blank. So I have another Richard. We were joking before about that. So we have two Richards, so King Richard and uh, he has an inspiring story. So I think you guys are really going to benefit from that podcast. So please, Richard, tell a little bit about yourself, your story, and we'll get started.
Well, my friend, I can't thank you enough. I'm so happy to be a guest on your podcast today. You do great work and your audience is cool. My name is Richard Blank. I'm the proud CEO of Costa Rica's call center. I'm originally from Northeast Philadelphia. When I graduated the proud Abington High School, I decided to double down on my favorite class, which was Spanish. So I went to the University of Arizona and became a wildcat for 5 years. And in August of 2000, I had a 1 in a million opportunity, Richard, to move to Costa Rica and work at my friend's center as an English teacher. And I took it. So I got past parents' guilt. I decided to make my own destiny compared to falling for certain traps, pressures, and stress for scholastic or cultural or social expectations. And I made my mark. And we just celebrated our 16th year in business. I've been in this country 23 years and married the girl of my dreams. So that, my friend, in a quick, summary, shows the fact that I decided to take a chance in life.
So what kind of work do you do with your company?
I'm the CEO of Costa Rica's call center. We're a bilingual, dedicated nearshore call center that assists in back office non-voice support, customer support, appointment setting, lead generation, and sales. We're 150 strong. The agency are highly talented. They can translate on the phone, convert calls, retain clients, do upsells, get referrals. It's an art of speech. I know AI has its place, but someone would still prefer a true painting or live theater over print and a VHS tape. So that's just the way that I look at it.
Mm. So, like I said before we pressed the record button, I was talking. I said I watched one of your podcasts with this lady, and it was about fulfillment. I know that's very important for you. So what triggered that inside of you, like to want fulfillment in your life?
Sometimes, Richard, you need to be selfish. But I also realized I wasn't just going to put everything on a number on a roulette table and hope for the best. When I was a little boy, I gravitated towards Spanish. I would pick up vocabulary words and practice it with the Latino community. It just wasn't a pat on the head in a cute moment. I was getting a lot of reinforcement, and people were adding to my vocabulary and grammar with their side of it. And so to me, it felt easy. A lot of times people will choose a career because either they love it, they're forced into it, or it just comes naturally to them. For me, I could retain the language and I didn't mind doing above and beyond what school asked for me to do. I would watch the movies. I would go on dates and speak in Spanish. That's really cool. And I would watch movies, write, read. You live it. And if you devote your life to something, obviously you'll be above par. And thankfully, I was given the opportunity to study this in college and not be seen as just taking 4 years to find myself. I needed this angle. Richard, I didn't have the maturity or the structure or discipline to study medicine or law or to really take my study seriously during those years. It was a whirlwind of fun. But the one rock that I could hold on to that I knew was a good thing was this language. So it always kept me out of trouble and for some reason gave me some momentum. But that's the fulfillment, my friend, being true to yourself when you gave yourself your word as a young person. I mean, let's be realistic. Sometimes we all can't go to the moon or play in the professional league of football or basketball. But if you said, hey, I want to learn how to play an instrument or speak a second language or go this one place in the world because I want to put my feet there, you need that because without certain small fulfillments, it's very difficult to have that sort of self-respect or even self-confidence that you can even do it. And then your car stalls out internally and you have no oil to yourself, no gas. Next thing you know, you're just some burnt out car in a garage that no one even pays attention to anymore. And so it takes some work, my friend. Motivation comes and goes. You just got to make sure that you have a straight line of what you're looking to do and willing to crawl for it. Fortunately for me, this language was building, so I got to see what I was building upon. It just wasn't a wish. And that was able to give me that sort of focus to continue on the certain journey that I was on.
Did you have something inside of you, like they always say, to listen to your voice, or something leading you to that place?
Don't we all? What was your favorite story growing up? Wasn't it fun to hear about the young guy that leaves the castle and slaves a dragon, saves a princess, comes back with a hero's journey and becomes a prince? My favorite movie was Conan the Barbarian back in the 80s. I mean, I love stories of coming of age, of individuals that were outside of the mold. Not saying the military or corporate structure is not bad, but a lot of these legends are made from the wanderer that comes in, almost like Clint Eastwood in those spaghetti westerners. Sometimes you need that Ajax, that individual that comes into the town to clean things up and put things right. Do they fit into the town? No, because no one had the guts to do it. So of course you don't fit into the town. They needed someone with real lion courage. And for me, I'm not a strong man that likes to walk around town bullying people, but man, I put my chest out, my shoulders back and my chin up, because in life you need to be resilient, and you need to take certain scars and wear those scars with pride. And so a lot of this has to do with philosophy of my life, because I get 100 years of this, and I needed to see if I was capable, if the stars would come aligned, if I could get wind in my sails, just to see. And I can't compare myself to billionaires that made it in a week. My thing was a grind. 16 years to get to where I am today. I wish it happened in a year. But I tell you what, when I'm 99 years old and I got 1 year left, I'm sitting there drinking my pina colada with my wife by my side. Hopefully she's still alive. We're going to talk about the times that Ricardo had some courage and that he was going for it. And because golden jewels lose its luster, and I ain't bringing it with me. But the one thing I will bring with me to this next life is that sort of electromagnetic energy that somehow got me to zig and zag through this crazy life that we all live in, and got me to here. There's no blueprint to this, but sometimes you see the signs, the tell signs. It's either intuition or it's right in front of you. But if you want to play the game, then play the game. Really do it, and invest in certain things that you see and do. Because if you half do it, you just will never have enough gas to get to the beach. That's all.
You spoke about courage. It's probably gonna seem like a weird question, but how does someone uh, get courage, like to do something that they know maybe it's right for them, like inside they know it's right for them, but they don't have the courage, like, to take the step to move forward?
Don't you wish that you walked across the dance floor and asked the cutest girl in class to dance back in the day? Don't you wish you had that courage? And could you imagine if this individual said yes and then you danced the night away? You hear about those stories, and then you get married and you live happily ever after. How are you going to have this story if it's not even the courage, it's just physics. If you're sitting there, you're just going to collect moss. You'll be 1 in a zillion lucky if someone crosses your path that way. You might need to align yourself with certain sort of, people and energy and just proxemics, timing and luck. I wish you could stand still and press a button and it comes to you like Uber. Or maybe today we're putting on these virtual reality goggles and you can create your world. But the greatest thing ever is to open that door, run outside, climb a tree and play. I mean, there's nothing better than using your 5 senses and living your life. Things that are natural that you don't need technology on. I know that we're doing this right now, but we could also be having the same conversation, Richard, face to face. That's the same thing. But you just can't be afraid. And if you're so concerned about what people think about you, maybe by the 10th person that doesn't like you, it could be you. Or you could be just that crazy genius that just decides to leave the small town, to study the one thing other people didn't study, or decide just to be a long shot. It's your decision. You might have financial and family responsibilities. And as I mentioned earlier in the podcast, you sometimes need to be selfish. But how do you know? If your main goal in life, Richard, my friend, is to pay it forward, the greatest thing to do is to make yourself as vulnerable as possible and literally put yourself out there, because you're selfless. You're just giving, like a beautiful tree. It has apples, and I feed families. I've taught English to over 10,000 people. And when I come on these podcasts with you, my man, I'm not selling a book or a seminar. Most people don't like telemarketers, except if you like the movies of The Wolf of Wall Street and Boiler Room and stuff. This was very interesting for me. And at the stage where I'm on the back nine and I'm looking to delegate more, the action is still there, but it's a different action because I'm playing with the house's money. I'm stable. I'm secure. So I can take out whatever that was filling my space and remove that weight and replace it with happy, like jukeboxes, candy machines, and pinball machines. You can sometimes upgrade. You can sometimes cut the fat. And that's part of maturity, my friend, and sometimes impulse control. And I know I answer your questions in a very roundabout way, but it's the only way to chisel away at that insecurities or doubt, or those that the peanut gallery that surrounds you and may love you, but they might be negative Nancy's. Why? Because they've never done it before. They've never been on a roller coaster. They've never been in the ocean, and they've never asked somebody to dance. As much as you love them, respect them, I can't respect your opinion because you've never done it, or at least tried to do it. So maybe water seeks its own level. You find expatriates or on your podcast, entrepreneurs, business owners, or visionaries. I wish I was all of them or one of them. All I know is I'm Richard Blank, and I decided to do something in my life that fortunately for me had wonderful results. So please take away any sort of letters. It's not a CEO or a boss or anything. Once again, I'm going to be gone one day. This isn't going to matter to anybody. But all I know is in this period of time, I was planting seeds and being happy and motivating people and just having a good run in life. That's all I was trying to do, my friend. And that's kind of my way of seeing things.
So you're speaking before people have responsibility. So that's one thing too that stops people sometimes from pursuing things, as they get older, they get married, kids, and all that. So all that comes together. So if someone would want to take that step, or they might be in conflict with those things. So what would you say about that?
Let's do first downs instead of touchdowns, Richard. My company began by me creating this logo that you see behind me. I did that with clay. I was hanging out one afternoon with my cousin. I just started thinking of what my logo should look like. So I put 3 of these things on top of each other. The rest is history. Why don't you start there? Or even prior to that, why don't you make your bed that morning? Prior to that, why don't you have a really strong breakfast? Take some protein, work out in the gym, call 5 people you haven't spoken to in 6 months. You need to start putting big piles into smaller piles. You need to start having small wins. So when you give yourself roots, you have your stability. And with the stability, then you can do the branches for reaching out. Because people want to align themselves with of or better in order to get better. And so a lot of it has to do with your core, with your balance. And so I'm not telling you to be strict military routine, but you know perfectly well your audience could do 2 or 3 things to tidy up the house or to physiologically feel better or get on a better system of sleep. It's true. And those are the sort of things that can give you power moves when it means the most. When you're competing with someone that is literally toe to toe with you, going for a position, going for a sale. But you're a little bit sharper that day. You have a little bit more spring in your step. Maybe you showed up 5 minutes earlier. You got points for that too, because you spoke to the secretary, right? And that's the kind of thing that you do. Live in the moment, live in the now. I know it's sounding cliche-ish, but you're telling me that these people have families. I know they do, and responsibilities. Okay, but why can't someone go on the computer, as I mentioned before, start writing script or creating a website or going on public forums and start throwing ideas out there or just networking? These are things you can do for 15 minutes. I don't have 15 minutes. Man, you watch 2 hours of TV a night and you just hang out. Don't tell me you don't have time. Time management is where it's at. That's how you do Tetris. That's how you pack things perfectly. It's very interesting how you can pack something almost double if you do space adjustments. It's the same space, it's the same mass. You're just not putting the things in properly. So there is really a science to this. And people need to slow down and calm down and stop watching so much TV. You are the TV. Create your life. Enjoy yourself. And that's my advice to people that might not have that motivation to start. As I mentioned before, maybe ask your family what they think about your logo. Just for kicks and giggles, you could sit with your 10-year-old and just pretend to be pitching. And then when they ask you the large vocabulary word that you're using, you could open the dictionary, and then little Billy's looking up words that are SAT words. And then all of a sudden, just because they're hanging out with dad or mom, learning about this business, don't be surprised if this 10-year-old gives you some sort of feedback. That's the $1 million idea. I mean, look at the Life commercials. Mikey liked it. You just saw a kid munching away at the cereals in the 70s. That kid was a cult classic. Don't be surprised to get that sort of feedback, that sort of vision, that sort of innocence and fantasy, imagination, support. I would be asking my children their thoughts constantly. A lot of millionaires ask their kids what the latest trend is today, and then they buy stock in those companies. And so maybe incorporate those that love you the most, and they might give you the most support. So then everyone's selling lemonade and you're having a great day on a Saturday. You never know, my friend. It's a great way for bonding, maturity. And when you start giving responsibilities to your children to do certain things, where it's not someone down the street that could yell at you or talk smack, it's within the family, you start seeing these growth patterns of the children, and then they might even get paid for it. So it's not just allowance or them asking for money, they start contributing. So I've seen families that pitch in, and they're the ones that have the greatest foundation. And so my suggestion for you and your amazing audience is to incorporate the people around you in your ideas, and it will assist.
So what lessons have you learned along the way in the journey?
I got disappointed more than I was angry, because sometimes it's right bus, right seat. There were individuals that I moved to other positions that were just not the correct position for them. Imagine a supervisor under stress for metrics. They're yelling at people. But 3 months ago, this was your top waiter that was making more money, having more fun. People were coming back because they love this guy. And whoever worked that shift saw this individual in their prime and learned from it that way. So thinking that by putting them as a manager would duplicate it is completely wrong. You burned them out. You stressed them out. And so really having leverage goes both ways. The boss can offer, the employee can accept. And so prior to any sort of movement or suggestion, I just want to make sure how people feel. because I've made some rush decisions before, or people have told me that they were ready to go, but when you put them out there, they were running for the hills. They just couldn't handle it. But my favorite, my friend, is someone that has never, ever worked in a center before. Because if you can get somebody brand new on your project that has no bad habits, you can mold them like a squire or two a night. And as I say before, you can keep that purity and that fidelity. They'll be with you along the way. Look at that sort of investment. And so when I get feedback from the people that work with me, the fact that I know their name, I go outside and say hello to their family, or I remember anniversaries or when they hit their top marks that month. They've told me that's meant sometimes more than what the money they're receiving. Money's important. Bosses never really give them that sort of respect or acknowledgement. So if you're growing a team, if you're working with people, just take a moment. Don't ingratiate. Don't be fake about it. But if somebody really does something above and beyond, why don't you give them the stuff that means the most, the chivalry, the showing up on time, following through with commitments, solid suggestions, support. Those are the things that you mentioned. Those are the ethics. Those are the core values of the individual that you decide to align. And so for me, those were the most sincere compliments that when I paid them, they were the most well received. And so I think that will lend a hand when your audience looks to expand and to grow.
So what would be your main advice for someone who's seeking fulfillment in their life?
Oh, yeah. You asked me for the secret sauce, Richard. Well, the secret sauce is not to be hard on yourself. You know, at the end of the day, if you did things with honorable intentions, then put your head on the pillow and sleep that night. Think about it like this. Chuck Wepner went 15 rounds against Muhammad Ali and they made a movie after him, Rocky. Why would he be hard on himself? I know he might have lost the fight of Ali, but other people saw it as the inspiration of going the distance and having the heart and courage. You might not get the sale. You might lose a friend or something might happen. But if you go the distance and you do everything that you have to do, you might not get, as society deems it, as the win, the prize, and the prize money. But as I mentioned, that stuff loses its value in time. What the people remember is somebody that went against the champ and really did it. And that's what made the man, that continued with his career. And so I like, it's the yin and the yang. And I understand that I can talk to you about all the wins, and the Wolf of Wall Street mentions that in your pitch. You should talk about some of your losses because there's so few. And I sometimes agree with that. There's nothing wrong with showing a scar or explaining a moment when you shed some skin and grew. It makes you humble. I mean, if you brag all the time, it's kind of annoying. I hate perfect tens. They one up you constantly. Thanks. It's not really what we're trying to do here. But my main goal is that if your circle is complete, if you're content with yourself, and at least you're doing certain things that are good, then drink your life and enjoy your life. Just don't be so hard on yourself. Those things can really weigh you down and hold you back.
So what's the definition of fulfillment for you at this moment?
100% paying it forward, Richard. Absolutely. Seeing smiles on faces, wagging tails, people coming to my office not to resign, but to tell me how many sales they made that day. And when you've accumulated waves and introductions, next thing you know, when you drive down the street in your neighborhood, you know everybody. It kind of feels like a high school hallway when you're the team captain. And so these are the little things. And when you go to a restaurant, you compliment the waitress to the manager. You give a positive escalation. You do it in writing. You do it verbally. And it's not a tit for tat. But there have been many times I've gotten upgraded to first class, a table by the corner, by the window when it's been crowded, or just that extra special attention when people are putting in notes or it goes to their superiors. that somebody saw that Maria did an excellent job that night on the table of 12, and they took the time to say something. We don't do these things these days. Do I do it? I look for always to do this. I try to do it as much as possible. It's true. There are suggestion boxes, and there are supervisors that work somewhere. They usually have a different shirt on or something. And just for kicks and giggles, I'll walk over to him. We're in Costa Rica and say, "Hey, Don Carlos." And he's like, "Yeah." I go, "Maria's the greatest." And he's looking at me funny because most people complain. You know, they all complain and they want free dessert or something. And I say, "She did this, she did this. You should be very proud of how you raised and you're teaching me." And they say, "Thank you." That I rarely get those. And that's a shame, my brother, because in society, besides handing you a 5 spot for doing a good job, you should pay the true compliment. You ask how I keep going. Well, besides giving so much, I've received compliments. I've had things nice said about me, or people including me. And so that makes you feel good. That gives you some go-go juice. And so if you're just going to count your dollars, you'll never be satisfied. Ever. Never. So look for the other things that you can do in life that will give you that sort of fulfillment. And if you do, you'll have the richest life, my friend. And you'll also make money because you'll be so calm and cool at that cocktail party that everyone's gravitating towards you. Or you'll say something that they'll remember compared to the 50 other people that they met that day. And that's how I spin and play the game of life. And hopefully I was able to contribute to you and your amazing podcast today.
Where can people find you on social media or the internet?
Thank you, Richard. I have an extremely large Facebook fan page of 130,000 local Costa Rican ticos. And real quick for your audience, we're north of Panama and south of Nicaragua. And Costa Rica is the only democratic society in Central America, and there's no standing army. So they put their money into education. There's a 95% literacy rate. We have the best infrastructure in Central America. We're known for ecotourism. Some of the best surfing in the world, Malpais and Hermosa. If you go to hot springs or iguanas, butterflies, and frogs, this is the place to be. But it's also good for medical tourism. People come here to retire, enjoy. And the expression in Costa Rica is pura vida, which means pure life. So this podcast will be going live there. And if your audience decides to buy a plane ticket and to come to Costa Rica, they can definitely look me up because I got 1,000 suggestions for them. And once again, Richard, can't thank you enough. Really enjoyed my time with you today.
No problem. Thanks, Richard, for being here. It was nice meeting you and talking to you. I hope people found some value in this episode. So on that note, my name is Richard L'Esperance. I go by the name of my man, Richard. And I was with Richard Blank. And we'll see you on the next episode, everybody. Bye-bye.
Yeah.